Hi, Z-Bob here with the Tale of Despero, and guess what? We're on chapter 44. Whose ears are those? Who's there? Shouted Cook again. Despero wisely said nothing. The kitchen was silent. Humph, said Cook. Nothing? It's nothing at all. Just my nervous Nellie ears playing tricks on me. You're an old fool, she said to herself as she turned back to the stove. You're just an old fool afraid of being caught making soup. Despero slumped against a spool of thread. As he leaned there, his heart pounding, his paws shaking, a small, wonderful thing occurred. A midnight breeze entered the kitchen and danced over to the stove and picked up the scent of the soup and then swirled across the floor and delivered the smell right directly to the mouse's nose. Despero put his head up in the air. He sniffed. He sniffed some more. He had never in his life smelled a thing so lovely and so inspiring. With each sniff he took, he felt himself growing stronger and stronger and braver. Cook leaned in close to the kettle and put the spoon in and took the spoon out and blew upon the spoon and then took the spoon out and brought it to her lips and sipped and swallowed. She said. She took another sip. Something's missing, she said. Maybe more salt. She put the spoon down and took up an enormous salt shaker and sprinkled salt into the kettle. And Despero, feeling emboldened by the smell of soup again, set to work pushing the spool of thread. Quickly, he said to himself, rolling the spool across the floor. Do it quickly. Do not think, just push. Cook whirled. The salt shaker was in her hand and shouted, Who goes there? Despero stopped pushing. He hid behind the spool of thread as Cook took the candle from the stove and held it up high. He said. The candlelight came closer and closer. What's this? The light came to rest directly on Despero's big ears, sticking up from behind the spool of thread. Ho, said Cook. Whose ears are those? And the light from the candle then shone full in Despero's face. A mouse, said Cook. A mouse is in my kitchen. Despero closed his eyes. He prepared for his death. He waited and waited, and then he heard the sound of laughter. He opened his eyes and looked at Cook. Oh, said Cook. For the first time in my life, I'm glad to see a mouse in my kitchen. Why, she asked. Why am I glad? Because a mouse is not a king's man here to punish me for making soup. That is why. Because a mouse is not a king's man here to take me to the dungeon for owning a spoon. A mouse, I, Cook, am glad to see a mouse. Cook's face was red. Her stomach was shaking. She said again, not just any mouse. A mouse with a needle tied around his waist. A mouse with no tail. Ain't it lovely? She shook her head and wiped at her eyes. Look, mouse, these are extraordinary times, and because of that, we must have some peace between us. I will not ask you what you're doing in my kitchen, and you in return will tell no one what I am cooking. She turned and then went back to the stove and set down the candle and picked up the spoon and again put it in the pot of soup and took it back out and tasted the soup, smacking her lips together. Not right, she said, not quite right. Missing something still. Despero did not move. He could not move. He was paralyzed. He was paralyzed by fear. Paralyzed by fear, I tell you. He sat on the kitchen floor. One small tear fell out of his eye. It was his left eye. He expected Cook to kill him. Instead, she had laughed at him, and he was surprised how much her laughter hurt. We're now up to chapter 45 of Despereaux, the tale of Despereaux. Chapter 45 is titled, Some Soup. Cook stirred the soup and then put the spoon down and held up the candle and looked over to Despereaux. "What are you waiting for?" she said. "Go, go, 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 go. There will never be another opportunity for a mouse to escape from my kitchen unharmed, ever again." The smell of soup again wafted in Despereaux's direction. He put his nose up in the air. His whiskers trembled. "Yes," said Cook, "this is soup that you're smelling. The princess, not that you would know or care, is missing, bless her good-hearted self. And times are terrible. And when times are terrible, you know what the answer is? Soup. Don't it smell like the answer?" "Yes," said Despereaux, "smells like the answer." Cook turned away from him. She put the candle down and picked up her spoon and started to stir. "Oh," she said, "these are the dark days." She shook her head. "These are the dark days, and I'm just kidding myself. Ain't no point in making soup unless others eat the soup. Soup needs another mouth to taste it, another heart to be warmed by it." She stopped stirring. She turned and looked at Despereaux. "Mouse," said Cook, "would you like some soup?" And then, without waiting for an answer, she took a saucer, spooned some soup, put it in the saucer, and put it in the kitchen right on the floor. "Come closer," she said. "I don't aim to hurt you, I promise." Despereaux sniffed. The soup smelled wonderful, incredible. Keeping one eye on Cook, he stepped out from behind the spool of thread and kept closer. "Go on," said Cook. "Taste it." Despereaux stepped onto the saucer. Soup covered his paws. He bent his head to the hot broth, and he sipped from the saucer. Oh, it was lovely. Garlic and chicken and watercress, the same soup that Cook had made the day the Queen had died. "How is it?" asked Cook anxiously. "Wonderful," said Despereaux. "The soup is wonderful." "Too much garlic?" said Cook, wringing her hands. "No," said Despereaux. "Soup is perfect." Cook smiled. "See," she said, "there ain't a body, be it a mouse or a man, that ain't made better by a little soup." Despereaux bent his head and sipped again. Despereaux saw that the cook had stood over him and smiled, saying, "It don't need a thing then? Is that what you're saying? No more salt, doesn't need a thing? Is it just right?" You know what Despereaux's answer was? Just right. He drank the soup in big, noisy gulps. And when he stepped out of the saucer, his paws were damp from the soup. His whiskers were dripping down to his stomach. And you know what was in his stomach? Soup. And you know why he was happy? Because his stomach was full. Cook said to him, "Not done already, are you? Surely you ain't done. You must want more." "I can't," said Despereaux. "I don't have time. I'm on my way to the dungeon to save the princess." Cook laughed. "You, a mouse, are going to save the princess? Really? You're going to save the princess?" Here's a picture. "Yes," said Despereaux. "I'm on a quest to save the princess." "Well, don't let me stand in your way." And so it was then that Cook held open the door to the dungeon while Despereaux rolled a spool of thread through it. "Good luck," she said to him. "Good luck saving the princess." She closed the door behind her and then leaned against it and shook her head. "And if that ain't an indicator of what strange days these are," she said to herself, "then I don't know what is." Me, Cook, feeding a mouse soup. And then wishing him good luck in saving the princess. Oh my, strange days indeed. Hi. Going to the next chapter. You know what chapter we're on? 46. This one's called Mouse Blood. Yes. Ooh. Despero stood at the top of the dungeon stairs and peered into the darkness that waited for him below. Oh, he said, oh my. He had forgotten how dark the dark dungeon really was. And he had forgotten, too, its terrible smell, the stench of rats, the odor of suffering. But his heart was full of love, and it was full of love for the princess. And his stomach was full with what? Soup. The cook's soup had filled his stomach. So, because of all of that, Despero felt brave and strong. And so he began immediately and without despair the hard work of maneuvering the spool of thread down the narrow dungeon steps. Down, 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 down went Despero, tilling the spool of thread. Slowly, oh so slowly, they went down, down, down. And then the passage was very dark, like lights out dark. I will tell myself a story, said Despero. I will make some light. Let's see. It'll begin this way. Once upon a time, that's how I'll start it. Once upon a time, there was a mouse who was very, 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 very small. Small mouse. Teeny tiny mouse. Exceptionally small. There was a beautiful human princess whose name was P. And it just so happened that this mouse was the one who selected by fate to serve the princess, to honor her, to save her from the darkness of the terrible dungeon. The story cheered up Despero considerably. His eyes became accustomed to the gloom and the dark, and he moved down the stairs more quickly because of the story. He was whispering to himself the tale of a devious rat and a fat serving girl and a beautiful princess and a brave mouse and some soup. And a spool of red thread. It was a story, in fact, very similar to the one we're reading right now. And the telling of it gave Despero his strength. He pushed the spool of thread with a great deal of gusto. Push with us. Pushing that spool of thread to get to the princess, because he's trying to save the princess. And the thread, perhaps eager to begin its honorable task of aiding in the saving of the princess, leapt forward and away from the mouse and went down the dungeon stairs ahead of him, without him. He couldn't reach the thread. No, cried Despero, no, no, no. He broke into a trot, chasing the thread through the darkness. But the spool had a head start. The spool was faster. It flew down those dungeon stairs, leaving Despero far behind. When it came to the end of the stairs, it rolled, it rolled, it rolled, it rolled, it rolled, until finally, lazily, it came to a stop. Do you know where it stopped? Unbelievable. Right at the gnarled paw. A rat! Right there by the paw. What have we here? Said the one-eared rat to the spool of thread. I'll tell you what we have, said Botticelli, Ramorso, answering his own question. I think we have red thread. How delightful. Red thread means one thing to a rat. He put his nose up in the air. He sniffed again. I smell, could it be? Yes, most definitely. It is soup. How strange. He sniffs some more. And I smell tears. Human tears. Delightful. I also detect the smell. Put his nose very high in the air. Do it with me. He took a big whiff. And he smelled flour and oil. What a cornucopia of scents. You know what cornucopia is? a whole bunch of. So a whole bunch of different smells. The cornucopia. Not the corn on the cob, but the cornucopia. Well, below it all, what do I smell? I also smell the blood of a mouse. Unmistakably, that is mouse blood. Yep, exactly, a mouse. Botticelli looked down at the spool of thread and smiled. He gave it a gentle push with one paw. Red thread. Yes, exactly. Just when you think that life in the dungeon cannot get any better, a mouse arrives. And now, our next chapter. Chapter 47. No choice.
20 minutes-ish.
Despero stood trembling on the steps. The thread was most definitely gone. He could not hear it. He could not see it. He should have tied it to himself when he had the chance. But it's too late now. Despero is in a dire situation. It suddenly became quite clear to him. He was a 2-ounce mouse. He was alone in the dark. It was a twisting dungeon full of rats. He had nothing but a sewing needle with which to defend himself, kind of like a sword. He had to find the princess, and he had to save her once he found her. It's impossible, he said in the darkness. I can't do it. He stood very still. I'll go back, he said. I don't know. I can't move. I don't have to go back. He took a step backward, but I can't go back. I have no choice. I have no choice. He took a step forward, then another. No choice. His heart beating, beating, beating. He was so stressed. No choice, no choice, no choice, no choice. At the bottom of the stairs, the rat Botticelli sat waiting, and when Despero stepped up from the last stair onto the dungeon floor, Botticelli called out to him as if he were a long-lost friend. Ah, said Botticelli, there you are. Exactly, I've been waiting for you. Despero saw the dark shape of a rat, that thing that he had feared and dreaded for so long, finally stepped out of the gloom and come to greet him. Welcome, welcome, said Botticelli. Despero put his paw on the needle. Ah, said Botticelli, you are armed. How charming. He put his paw in the air. I surrender. Oh, yes, certainly, exactly. I surrender. I, said Despero. Yes, Botticelli said, you. He took the locket from around his neck. He began to swing it back and forth. Please, please, go on, go on. I don't want to hurt you, said Despero. I just need to get by you. I'm on a quest. On a quest. Really, said Botticelli? How extraordinary. A mouse on a quest. I've never heard of that before. A mouse on a quest. Back and forth went the locket. A quest for what, I may ask? A quest to save the princess. The princess, says Botticelli. The princess, the princess. Everything seems to be about the princess these days. The king's men were down here searching for her. You know, they didn't find her. That goes without saying. But now a mouse has arrived and he's on a quest to save the princess? Come on. Yes, said Despero. He took a step to the left of Botticelli. How inspiring, said Botticelli. He lazily took a step to his right, blocking Despero's way. Why the hurry, little friend? Because, said Despero, I have to... Yes, you have to save the princess. I heard, exactly. But before you save her, you must find her, right? Yes, said Despero. What if, said Botticelli, what if I told you that I know exactly where the princess is? What if I told you I could take you directly to her? Said Despero. His voice shook. His paw on the needle trembled. Why would you do that? Well, why would you help me? Well, maybe to do my part for humanity, to aid in the saving of a princess, but you are a rat, supplied Botticelli. Yes, I'm a rat, and I see by your trembling that the greatly exaggerated rumors of our evil nature have reached your oversized ears, said Despero. It is, Botticelli said, swinging the locket back and forth. If you allow me a bit of assistance, you'll be doing me a tremendous favor. But I can only do a good deed for you and the princess if my actions will help to dispel the terrible myth of evil that seems to surround rats everywhere. Will you let me assist you? Will you let me assist myself and my kind? Was that a trick? Of course it was. Botticelli did not want to be of service, far from it. You know what Botticelli wanted? He wanted others to suffer. Specifically, he wanted this small mouse to suffer. How best to do that?